Thinking about food. Thinking about food.
Well, hello. It is me, Danielle, dietitian with Amago Nutrition. I am solo today, so we have a really great question from Amanda in California. And if you'd like to submit a question, go to amagonutrition.com/podcast. That's IMAGO nutrition.com/podcast. We're looking for some more new questions. So the question today is, what calorie deficit should a breastfeeding mom be at to lose weight, but also continue breastfeeding? So that's a really great question. And I know it applies to a lot of women out there trying to, be proactive and lose the weight that was gained during pregnancy, but also a very important consideration so that we're not going too low in our calories and decrease our milk supply. So I've gotten this question a lot. I also breastfed to children and could see a change in your supply based on things that were going on. So let's dive into this question. So what first I would like to tell everyone about is a really great resource, kellymom.com. Kellymom.com is lactation consultants that provide a lot of really good information. They gave me some tips that I'm going to share with you today, and then we'll also get into like an example. So first of all, wait until your baby is 2 months old, and that is to establish a good milk supply. When they're super young, right out of the hospital, they're breastfeeding quite often. That's to get that supply up and established. So definitely not before 2 months old. And then the second thing to remember is breastfeeding burns an average of 200 to 500 calories per day. Okay. So when we think about, in her question, she said calorie deficit. So what that means is trying to go lower than the calories you burn in a day to lose weight. So the total calories you burn in a day, you have to add the 200 to 500 calories. That is how many calories you're burning for your total energy expenditure when you're breastfeeding. So that's something to think about. And like I said, we're going to get a number example to make it a little bit more clear. So you want to remember that you need an extra 200 to 500 calories per day to breastfeed. Another tip or recommendation is breastfeeding without restriction. So it is shown in studies that the longer you breastfeed, longer than 6 months, increases maternal weight loss, and then more frequent breastfeeding. I know you want to obviously feed the baby based on need. You can't really overfeed a baby with breastfeeding, which is nice. They are really good at monitoring their cues on when they're hungry or satisfied. You can do that a little bit with the bottle, but you cannot do that really with breastfeeding, have overconsumption. But the babies are really good in general, even bottle fed, really good at listening to their body cues and when they're satisfied and when they're hungry still. So frequent breastfeeding and breastfeeding longer than 6 months can increase maternal weight loss. The second thing to consider is studies have shown that you need at least 15 to 1,800 calories a day. So 15 to 1,800 calories per day. Dropping below that number can increase the risk of the supply decreasing. So that is a kind of arbitrary number because every woman weighs different and different energy throughout the day or exercise level. So we're going to dive into a little bit more detail on that as well. But just thinking about lower than 1,500 calories or 1,800 calories might put your supply at risk of reducing your milk supply. The next thing to think about is not letting a weight loss of more than 1.5 pounds per week. So aiming for a weight loss of less than 1.5 pounds per week. So you're probably anxious and excited to lose the weight that you gained, but trying to be patient and aiming for that 0.5 pound to 1 pound per week. Next, decrease calories gradually. So a sudden drop can reduce your milk supply. And in general, a sudden drop in calories doesn't, cause it to stop completely. You can recover that, such as in like a sickness, maternal sickness. You might see a sudden drop in your milk supply, but once those calories are resumed, and other things can happen, like with dehydration or medications may cause those things. And it's not going to ruin the milk supply, but just knowing it can go back to normal, but trying not to do that, to have a sudden drop in calories. So decrease them gradually. So let's take a look at a number, an example. Okay, so I'm going to pick 30-year-old woman weighing about 190, and she's about 5'5". Okay, she's not active. This is just really, I just pulled it out of thin air. So if you go to a calculator to calculate your total energy expenditure, you can find that your basal metabolic rate is about 1583 in this example. Okay, 1583. Basal metabolic rate means we do not want to drop below that. That's kind of putting your body in starvation mode. Okay. So that would definitely, push your milk supply at risk, but also not allow for maintainable weight loss. It would cause definitely a drop in weight, but then that's where you get that weight loss plateau when you're going below your basal metabolic rate. And that's for non-breastfeeding women or men. So like anytime, you'd never want to go below your basal metabolic rate if you're trying to lose weight and you don't want to hit that weight loss plateau. So 1583 is the basal metabolic rate for this example. And then the total energy expenditure is 1899. And we need to increase or add that 200 to 500 calories that you need for the breastfeeding. So that puts you at 2,099 or 2,399. Okay, so that's the total energy expenditure for maintaining the 190 while breastfeeding. Okay, so 2,099 to 2,300. All right, 2,399. So that's your total energy expenditure with that, maintaining that weight and breastfeeding. So if we want to lose 1 pound a week, we need to subtract 500 calories per day. So 1 pound is 3,500 calories. So if we want to lose 1 pound a week, we divide that by 7, and that's 500 calorie deficit a day. And that would give us a 1,600 to 1,900 calorie range for weight loss. So that's kind of really specific and helpful if you're tracking. And that's one of the things to think about is we don't want to do any quick fix weight loss solutions while you are breastfeeding. We don't want to do any fad diets or liquid diets or low carb diets or weight loss medications. Those are all not recommended during pregnancy. During breastfeeding. So what you do want to think about is how should you go about doing this? So slowly decreasing portions. That is the biggest thing, I think, when we're, have an infant, you're tired, you're really busy trying to keep the baby happy all day and do other chores such as your cleaning and your laundry and everything else. So we don't even think. You're moving so fast, you're not even thinking about how much you're putting in your mouth. And you're starving, obviously, because you're burning more calories when you're trying to breastfeed. So I just remember getting to that point. I was like, I'm so hungry. I totally forgot. So like maybe setting some alarms to help you remember to eat more frequently so you're not starving when you do sit down. Practicing mindful eating habits is really a big one because when you're breastfeeding, you're probably still low on sleep or lack of sleep, and that can affect your appetite hormones. So if you are low in sleep, you can actually feel more hungry than you actually are. How I combated that is if I felt like I could go to sleep, then I was not hungry. I just felt like there was a really blurred line. I felt like I was always hungry when I was breastfeeding, and I was actually always tired as well. So if I could fall asleep, then I wasn't hungry. But obviously, if you have those cues like growling of the stomach, lightheaded, shaky, we don't want to get there, of course. So those alarms could help, or reminders could help to eat more frequently. But just knowing that the lack of sleep can definitely affect your appetite hormones, and then make it harder for you to pay attention to how much you're getting at a meal. So decreasing portions slowly, not drastically, logging your food or tracking your food in like a free app to track the calories, just increasing your exercise gradually, not giving an expectation of, an hour workout every day or anything like that. Making sure you get adequate protein and fiber. Those two things are the only things that help you feel satisfied. We don't want to avoid carbs. You need those energy-based foods, but really making sure you're getting enough protein and fiber to feel satisfied. And then also staying hydrated, lots of water. And so those would be my tips for what calorie deficit should a breastfeeding mom be at to lose weight and also continue breastfeeding. So I hope that was helpful today. And if there's any other questions, once again, go to imagonutrition.com/podcast. Thank you so much. Have a great day.
Thinking about food, thinking about food.